The Cocodona 250 is an endurance race, a test of fitness and a statement of accomplishment for its runners. But officials with the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office say Tuesday around 5 p.m., a 40-year-old woman running the race collapsed after a severe medical episode. Emergency crews that are staggered along the trails were able to get to her quickly, trying to save her life, but she died on scene. Right now, detectives are not saying how she died, but say she collapsed near Senator Highway and Groom Creek Trailhead. Groom Creek is south of Prescott. She made it about 125 miles into the course. Detectives say there are no suspicious circumstances in this case. Cocodona 250 is described as one of the most challenging races in North America. Runners from around the world train vigorously for it. The Facebook page for the race posting minute-by-minute updates showcasing runners and their stories, showing how tough it is to get through. In some posts, people talk about medical challenges. And then there were other posts where you can see the emergency teams putting bandages on feet, taking vitals, or handing out food and water. There were a lot of participants posting on social media while navigating the terrain, giving condolences to the fallen runner's family. Officials with the Cocodona 250 also sharing this statement, expressing how saddened they are and that the race will continue in the woman's honor. And coordinators with the race tell me that they're working with family directly and the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office on next steps, but they did not elaborate on what those next steps were. As soon as we get more information about the situation, we'll keep you posted. Reporting for Arizona's Family, I'm Stephanie Dupre.